Hello, people. Finished a book, The Siege of Peking, The Siege at Peking. Uh, this little hole in the dust cover here. I got this book at McKay's in Chattanooga, and they feel like they need to put stickers with a price tag on there, and trying to get that sticker off. I tore a hole in the dust cover. If you ever did go to sell a book, I'll never sell books. When I'm dead, I think these books, all my books, are gonna go in a will to Case Township in Michigan, because I have visited their library, and my books would probably double their library. But anyways, I tried to take that sticker off and I ripped a hole in it. The Siege at Peking, Peter Fleming. I've never read anything by Peter Fleming before. He's an author from like the 50s. This is a wonderful little book. I really like the way he writes. It reminded me of Gibbon a little bit, although nobody can match Gibbon. But anyways, I really enjoyed this book. This was written in 1959, and really odd, the page where you normally see what year it was written in did not have the year. So I had to look down at the bottom, and there's a Library of Congress card catalog number there. And that number starts 59 dash, and then it's a big long number. So I assumed correctly that that would be the year that it was written, and I was right. 261 pages. Wonderful historical perspective in this book. He talks about the other things that are going on in the world at that time. And this takes place in the year 1900. And I've seen the movie with Charlton Heston. Maybe we all have. The movie is not too bad. It sort of follows the story. There's a scene in that movie where they leave the legation and they make a sortie to destroy this giant cannon that the Chinese have brought up. And that is nowhere in the book, so I don't know. They must have just invented that. The German ambassador that gets killed in the movie, he does get killed. It's a real thing, but he's a young man, and I think in the movie they make him look like an old man. I wish they would have had a little bit more about this German ambassador. He seems to have been an interesting character. He actually, the first time he sees a boxer, he attacks him and beats the shit out of him with his cane. And that's the first time I've used the word boxer. This is the Boxer Rebellion in China. And History Rhymes is my next note there. Page 36, the first two sentences. In 9 cases out of 10, the boxer was a Chinese peasant in fancy dress. More recent rebels in more politically sophisticated states have donned colored shirts as a symbol of loyalty to their cause. That just made me think about the Boogaloo Boys, who I haven't heard too much about lately. But the Boogaloo Boys are some kind of crazy Christian nationalist thing here in the United States, and they tend to wear Hawaiian shirts. Missionaries. Missionaries are sprinkled throughout this book. All the countries sent missionaries to China because the poor Chinese were not Christian, which meant that they were going to go to hell. And the Chinese really resented the missionaries. And it's a big reason why this Boxer Rebellion began. It wasn't only in Peking, it was all over the country. And a lot of the people that ended up getting killed by the Boxers were missionaries, or they were Chinese converts. And then I have a note here that says Anglo-centric. Not unusual. The, I was a little bit quick to judge the book as being Anglo-centric. It really wasn't Anglo-centric. It told the whole story. And I don't know, Anglo-centric is kind of an oddball word anyway, because the Angli were a German tribe, and Anglo has come to mean somebody from England, but they were actually German. Kettler, that's the German ambassador's name. There's not much reading that I'm going to do here, but here's one of them. Second paragraph, page 166. I think I'm getting bit by no-see-ums out here, which sucks. Second paragraph. As for protecting the dynasty, the Boxers had put it in a far worse predicament than it was in before they appeared on the scene. For their outrages, either committed by or officially ascribed to them, had achieved the almost impossible by uniting the powers in one common purpose. They had sunk their differences. For once, the barbarians all wanted to do the same thing, march on Peking. And when they marched, they would march in an ugly mood. And when they say the powers, they mean England, Germany, France, Italy, Russia, Austria, and the United States. Usually they were quibbling about something, especially in the year 1900. But once the Boxers put them under siege and threatened to kill them all, then they had a united purpose. My next note here says the supernatural powers. This is the time in China when it was the Empress Dowager. And the Empress Dowager had a regency over the true emperor. And she was a fairly intelligent woman, only she bought into the supernatural powers that the Boxers supposedly had. Like, they were immune to bullets, they were immune to cannonballs. They even went around putting on displays about their supposed immunity. And several of them were killed putting on these displays. And every time one of them got killed, there would be excuses. Oh, he wasn't a real boxer. He didn't do the rituals that he was supposed to do. But the Empress Dowager seems to have been duped by this. She thought she could get all the foreigners out of her country. And obviously it wasn't true. And I wrote down the ghost dance and Bantu underneath that, because here in the United States, the ghost dance, which became popular right before the massacre at Wounded Knee, that was part of the ghost dance, is if you did this ghost dance, you would be immune to bullets. It didn't work out very well. And the Bantu, that's a very general term for some of the natives that were around South Africa, who had lost war after war with the English and the Dutch, and they became desperate, and there was a shaman that told them, hey, all we have to do is kill all our cattle, and we will be immune to bullets. And it did not work out very well for them either, especially since they were a society based on all their wealth was based on cattle. And then I have, just for the style, the last paragraph, 196. That I really enjoyed this guy's writing style. And I wanted to get a paragraph that illustrated that. And hopefully this is it. Last paragraph. Yeah. Li Ping Hing was granted by decree the rare privilege of riding a horse inside the Forbidden City and using a sedan chair borne by 2 persons in the Winter Palace. 4 armies were placed under his command. an access of debilitated jingoism swept through the Manchu court. One is reminded of some huge brackish aquarium. When a new fish is dropped in, the others lose their glazed vacuity, abandon their lethargic and accustomed circuits, slough off their derelict air. There are flurries of activity. The sand spurts up. The blousy vegetation undulates. The denizens quiver, gulp, emit long streams of bubbles, whisk to and fro with an air of purpose. Then, gradually, the old order is reestablished. Flaccid, bulbous, goggling, the multicolored fish sink back into apathy and take up again the empty ritual of their rounds. And you can, if you've ever read Gibbon, you can see why I kind of compared this guy to Gibbon, Peter Fleming. And there is a military controversy here. When the relieving troops march to the relief of Peking, they get there and you have all these different nationalities, and then who the hell are they going to let through first, So they decide, they camp 3 miles away from, Peking is a walled city at that time. They camp 3 miles away and they each get assigned a gate. The Russians have the most troops. The Japanese have the second most, and I don't think the Japanese are well represented in that movie with Charlton Heston. Anyways, the Russians in the night, they all assign these gates, and they're all assigned a time to attack simultaneously at all the different gates. In the morning, they're supposed to do this. So the Russians make a reconnaissance sortie at night, discover that one of the gates is not well guarded, and they break through. And it's not even the Russians' assigned gate, it's the Americans' assigned gate. And everybody at first, probably for years, blamed the Russians and said that they did this on purpose. But it was only a small group of Russians that attacked this gate. The main body of the Russians did not go to their support for like another 12 hours. If the Russians had planned this out, it wouldn't have been like this. And my note here says, the Russians are the first relieving troops through the wall around Peking. Second paragraph, page 203, and this is my last little bit here. The author, Peter Fleming, says that no, the Russians did not plan this. From this summary, it will be clear that the legend of Russian duplicity is of questionable status. Vasilevsky may have been overbold, may have exceeded his orders, but it is scarcely conceivable that he was privily encouraged to do so by General Linovich. If he had been, the main body of the Russian contingent would not have taken nearly 12 hours to follow up the limited and costly success achieved by its small advance guard. It is indeed the tardiness rather than the impetuosity of General Linovich's own movements which is the most striking feature of the Russian operations on 13th-14th August. The din of a furious battle in which his advance guard, under his chief of staff, was involved began to assail his ears before midnight on the 13th, yet it was not until 10 o'clock on the 14th that his leading troops arrived before the gate which had been breached. It is at least as likely that in the darkness nobody really knew what they were doing or where they were as that the Russian deviation was a deep-laid plan. And if it was a deep-laid plan, it was badly carried out. I love military controversies. Military Grouchy eating strawberries when he should have been hurrying to the scene of the Battle of Waterloo. Tannenberg when the Russian general has the German troops on the run, and he tells his ADC and his chief of staff, just stay in your pajamas. We're not going to do nothing. things like that I love. Thanks for watching.